I mean, what you do is you have 10,000 items in the main matrix. And what you see on your screen is red, purple, and yellow, and then blues. The blues are what we consider to be balanced. So we don't pay much attention to the blue. Yellow is 1 standard deviation from the mean. Purple is 2 standard deviations. And red is 3 standard deviations. So, you know, obviously the acute items are in red, but you have a lot of information in front of you. And so what the art form is trying to sort out what the priority is. Now, you do an intake, you get essential information. There's about 15 very quick questions you ask, and you give them a numerical value. The answers come in a numerical value, and then that gives you an index when you do the after you do the test and you see all the items, and whether the person has a high index or a low index really depends upon their state of being or their health. So you see all that too. Then you can also add all kinds of different items. You can add all kinds of different symptoms. You can add all kinds of different information from the person's history as they give it to you, and that helps focus at least where they are in terms of what it is they want to work on, or what their biggest issues are. And then you work on those. You look for those indicators after you test them. The test is only 3.5 minutes, so it's quite fast. And then you start sorting through the main matrix, and you have a ton of screens you can go to. You've got dental, and you've got spinal, and you've got sports injury, and you've got bones, and you've got what they call the sarcodes, which is all the organs which you can work on. You got detox. You got detox by area of the body, the organs specifically, and so on. You got emotions. You got NLP. You got neurotransmitters. You got practice. You got more stuff than you could possibly do in a given hour. I mean, it's like the art form is. Really, one of the art forms is just sorting out, setting your priorities, starting work on somebody, and so that when they leave, they have a sensation that something's happened. You know, it's rare that somebody walks in with, let's call an influenza or pneumonia or COVID, and they walk out healed. That doesn't happen. I'm afraid that the misleading information that was given on the earlier calls about the machine is that that stuff is healed. Well, she did say it takes a while. It takes a number. I think her name is Susie Quantum. But she did say it takes a while. It takes 12 sessions or something like that. Well, maybe so. I don't know. I think it's up to the person once they learn from 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 sessions to go back and take care of themselves better. So what my job is to help them understand where they can improve their health, what guidance I can give them in terms of nutrition, what guidance I can give them in terms of lifestyle, emotional awareness, all kinds of things which they may not have a clue about or nobody's ever talked to them about. So it's somewhat tenuous. It's somewhat you got to be pretty careful about how you walk into some of these areas, because you ask leading questions. You see all kinds of information on the screen, and you say, "Well, are you fatigued? Do you show up a lot of fatigue?" And they go, "Well, yeah, I'm kind of. Well, your adrenals look weak, and your thyroid is not. I'm getting indications of hypothyroid. I'm getting some hormonal imbalances. There's a lot of information that you want to help them understand. There's a reason. There's a lot of reasons for that fatigue. So it's incumbent on anybody who has the machine to spend an enormous amount of time just in their own understanding of the body. And of the various levels of the body, whether it's mental or physical or emotional or spiritual. That was the four major areas that you cover. And I've learned a huge amount. I mean, it's like it's on the job training, and I've really enjoyed it. But one person I work on more than anybody else is myself. You know, I work on myself at least once a week. At least once a week, there's a group out of Michigan called SST, and this guy runs a Friday noon session. For me, it's noon. For him, it's 5 o'clock because the time differences. You know, he's a teacher. His name is Fernando, and he's a teacher. He's taught in different conferences all over the world. And so what's great to work with him is you set yourself up, and he does an enormous amount in a very short period of time. So you can see how somebody can move through this machine with such grace and cover so much information. But you know, it took me years before I found somebody who had that astute background, which reminds me of one very important fact that I like to share. He's with a group called Mandalay. Now, there's two major groups in the world. There's the QX world, which is where Gage Tarrant is, and she's the one that Kim has been in contact with, and that is responsible for the eclosion or the manufacturing of the device, which is basically a box in the U.S. And then there's she's QX World, and then there's Mandalay, and there's a bunch of worldwide teachers in Mandalay. They've kind of separated. They had a separation, and so you know I kind of dance in both worlds because you know I know the various players, and I go to the trainings that are on YouTube for Mandalay, and I try to pay attention once in a while to Desiree and what he's putting out there and all of his stuff. You know, I don't have to study as much as I used to, although I try to stay on top of it. I have a basic understanding of the machine. I can work with anybody at any point in time and not feel like I need to reinvent. I need to really, that I'm not going to understand something. And what I don't understand, what's interesting is you should do the research. Google is fantastic. You can look up anything, and you can do it quickly on the fly. I've got two screens that I work with. I I've got Google on one side, I got the QXCI Skio on the other, and I just work both screens at once. And so anything I don't understand, which can be quite a bit at any given time, there's so much to the body, and there's so much data in this main matrix that you've got to be aware of where you can get information to help you explain some of this stuff. So that's pretty much my summary. And I'm available for questions and anything else I can help you with.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bear. I appreciate you giving that explanation. I think what I'd like to try to do is maybe just bring it back a little bit, maybe more from like a beginner stage, because this was my first experience that I had just this last Thursday. Now, the practitioner that I went to has approximately the same amount of time with the machine, around 15 years. I had a really incredible experience, I'd have to say, because I just am really against the AMA, and I've been sort of, avoiding doctors for a while, knowing I have some underlying issues. But when I connected with the practitioner here locally, I went to the location, and he actually has 3 machines. He has the, the QXCI, the Skio, and the Eductor. Now, my understanding was that they were all being used on me simultaneously. What you described as far as the time and the study of these devices was very apparent, because it was explained to me that this is it's like an art science, I think, is really what it is. It's like you're connecting yourself to a technology. And what I gathered from the individual who worked on me was that he was very intuitive, and he was able to pick a lot of things up. We were able to really connect really well on many levels, and because of that, he was able to sort of tune the machines in to get me dialed in. Now, in addition to that, was really interesting is this individual also knew my partner who happened to be with me, and they had worked with the Skio machine about 10 years ago. And so, just for everybody on the call, there are different machines, and, maybe Lawrence can explain a little bit about those, but apparently one of the original machines was the Skio machine, which was basically upgraded about, I think, 3 or so years ago to the QXCI. And the old Skio machine was rather limited in what it could do. From what I was explained to me, you could do, maybe you could tackle 3 or 4 different issues. Whereas based on what I was told, I had covered dozens of issues in a 2-hour session. But I also had a 98% accuracy rate. Lawrence mentioned that on the very beginning, that basically the machine is aligned to you, and there's levels of accuracy that you try to attain, which is more or less your biological body connecting into this quantum machine. And that, the connection is really what we're talking about. I was able, with a few breaths and a meditative practice, to go from like, I think 93 when I first connected, all the way up to 98% accuracy. So that was apparently was really good from what I was told. And because of that, I was able to receive a tremendous amount of different programs that the machine offered. And the result for me was rather miraculous, I would say. For me, I've had a lot of different things happen in my life. And I had a brain injury about 10 years ago, was in a coma. And I know that some of the wiring in my brain was off. I've been doing everything I can to get my brain health back in order and get it restored. And in my own assessment, I've done a really good job. But I had underlying levels of PTSD, of brain issues that seemed to be, I guess if I were to describe them, it would be like a little mini prisons within my brain that wouldn't allow me to go certain places, or to, I don't know, act certain ways or make the right decisions. But ever since I got I was connected to the machine, and all of the work that was done on my brain, I seem to have released a tremendous amount of what I would consider to be PTSD, anxiety, and also just the way I look at a lot of things. I used to be very triggered by certain things, and a lot of those things, just in the last few days, I'm not being triggered by them. I seem to be in a much more calm space, and I've had a lot of people tell me that I seem to be much more calmer, and that there have been a shift and change in me. So with that, I had a really great experience. I fortunately have a very good practitioner here locally. And I know there's people out there on the call that are probably looking to see if they can get these devices, locally. And I know there's one woman who's on the call, one lady, let's see, Lisa Bauer. She had mentioned on the chat here, she's really trying to get her mom connected to this machine in the Chicago area. So like Lawrence, I don't know if you can speak to how maybe if there's a master practitioners list, if it's maybe sort of difficult to find practititioners in different regions.
No, what happens is there's 3 Facebook groups. And, as I said, there's one group that's connected to Desiree, and there's another group that's connected to Mandalay, and then there's another group connected to some other practitioner. I don't know who she aligns with. But so what I do is when I have a question about where, if I need somebody in some foreign country, I'll just put it on the Facebook page. You can also go to the Mandalay website, and they have a list of practitioners by country. So I haven't checked that recently, so I can't recommend it. I don't know if I could recommend it for Chicago or not, but I'm sure there's somebody in the Chicago area. That's a big enough market that there's got to be somebody out there.
That sounds great. Well, hey, I've got a couple questions maybe that people have been leaving on chat. So let me see here. Looks like we've got Aya on the line, and Aya seems to be have a lot of knowledge about the machines, but was asking, or excuse me, rather, this one actually is from Lisa. Is the machine based on Tesla technology? Was one question.
I said no, it's not.
Okay, so it's
Not
not.
evidently.
Okay,
It would be, well, you know, the electromagnetic nature of Tesla is probably somewhere in the machine in terms of magnetics, but it's not necessarily based on his work.
okay. Yeah, it was described to me as quantum, and I think that makes sense with what you stated, that, you know, practitioners can do remote sessions with people at a roughly 80% accuracy rate. And that's one thing my practitioner was mentioning as well, is that here in Oregon, you know, can connect to somebody in Australia, for instance, who's getting some really good assistance with their issues. So that is very interesting to me, and I don't know if you can expand a little bit more on that, on how that quantum field interacts or how you perceive it.
Somebody said, is it entanglement? And I just wrote down, yes, it is entanglement, and it's based on the fact that the the name and the birth date and the location of the person when put in the machine more or less links or merges with the person wherever they are. So by definition, I would think that's an example of entanglement. At least that's the way I would describe it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I don't know. Do you, Bear, do you see like a link between the the quantum that Kim speaks of and the machine? Is it sort of like that etheric quantum that is maybe, you
You
know,
mean her quantum system?
yeah, I mean, do you see it as being similar, the same, interacting? I guess I'm trying to piece it
Well, they
together.
work on this. They work on the same principles. The fact is there's, you know, everything is all thrown together in the moment. And so I suppose, I don't know, I've never worked with her machine. I suppose it works something similar. I mean, you know, it can access anything, anywhere, at any time. It doesn't even need to have a direct link. I asked him one time, I said, I would really love to help you work on that machine, you know, but I think it was too complex of a request, meaning I'm not trained in all of the intricacies of of that terminal system. Even though I'm, you know, think that I could pick it up, which is probably totally an ego statement. But I would like to pick it up. Let's put it that way. I would have liked to help her,
Yes.
but she's a pretty self-contained unit. She does her own thing, and she doesn't let a lot of people in, at least from my experience. I mean, I communicate with her on a regular basis on Telegram, but the stuff I send her on Telegram, I rarely get much of an interaction in terms of conversation. You know, it's because she's really tied up in what it is she does, and I think she lets Tank go out and speak to the broader group of people, and then she doesn't spend as much time, or does she focuses on her main activity, which is the trust and trying to get money through the system. So I haven't been very successful in terms of really engaging her on any number of fronts. I did, like I said, I did volunteer that I would work the quantum system for her if she needed help, but that didn't go anywhere either. So I don't have much information in terms of quantum, her system.
Okay.
I've got a lot of information according to the STIO.
Great. Well, thank you for that. That really helps us assemble some things and connect the dots. Well, hey, you know, I have Max Lowen on the line, and Max also has been getting sessions and has told me a lot of the benefits she's been experiencing. So I wanted to open it up to Max. If you'd like to just tell us what your experience has been, Max, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, let's see where to start. Well, I found out about this practitioner and I decided to go. I was going through I had been feeling not well for a few weeks, not physically, but more like emotionally, where I was like gripped with this terrible fear and trauma. And I'm a survivor of sex trafficking and torture and things like that in my childhood. And I've recovered from it and done a lot of work and all that. But, there was a lot of trauma in me. So I wondered if just the events out in the world or what was really triggering this 2 week, like really terrible time. Like I couldn't shake this fear. And usually I know what to do. So I felt kind of out of control with it. So I decided to give it a shot and I went. And the very first session, I'd been talking to David and Zenja, so they know I'd been just in a bad way. And after that first session, I drove home and I just spontaneously started laughing. I just couldn't stop laughing. I had all this joy and I felt liberated in a way that was really undescribable. And what had happened is right away, the machine detected some kind of entity that was wrapped, he said, around my neck and around my heart. And I had actually been experiencing a weird pressure there during those 2 weeks. So so he removed it. And I believe that's what it was that was causing me that distress, because after that and since then, it's gone. I mean, it's just gone. It has not come back. So, stressors come, stressors go, the fires, the scamdemic, the this, the that. I have remained more balanced since then than really I had before. And so I've kept going though, every week. I think I've been like 5 or 6 times now, because the machine, so in my experience, what I noticed is you put the wrist things on, like you said, Lawrence, and the head thing and the ankle things. And then he has a pad that you also lay on your back. So you lay on the table and there's like a black pad underneath as well. And then the machine sort of diagnoses. So that was because I was very curious. I was asking a lot of questions. And so it sort of read me and kind of what was going on. And like you said, Lawrence, that first time I was there, I think for 3 hours, because he kept running more and more programs. And he told me there was stuff with bones and blood and, different things. And so I've been going back just because I feel like with all the stuff that I did go through, I think a bunch of times makes sense. And I'm very intuitive, so I'll know when I'm done and when I don't need to go back or when I need to just go back for a tune-up. But I found that really, really, really interesting. And in my observation, this practitioner and the machine become like one.
Mhm.
And it's like a dance. Like he just kind of knows what screen to go on, and he has 3 things, and it's incredible. And I can just feel that. It's sort of this, so I don't know what I'm feeling, if it's that quantum state or what, but.
Well, you've merged with him and the machine. He's part of the process of that quantum environment, that field that's been set up. And if you're aware enough, you set up the field with a number of things in the machine before you even start. An Oregon field, which covers the entire area 100 meters out with Oregon, and you program in positive intentional statements with codes of flower essences and things that you can put into that field. And, you actually create an environment that is quite high frequency, high vibrational. And I'm always I'm very energized by the whole process. I mean, it's like when I come out of one of those sessions, working with somebody, I'm just got all this energy because I'm part of that field, and I'm just like you said, 3 hours is a long time. That's an incredibly long time. Usually what happens is you get an alarm reaction from someone who's not, you must have an incredibly clean lymph system, because basically after about an hour and a half, about 90 minutes or so, you start getting of your body, the body can't handle all the detoxing that's going on. And your lymph system's not being able to handle all of that. So usually that's a signature of, starting to tone down the session and start doing the softer sessions like chakra balancing and multidimensional alignments and other things that are not as hard on the body, and then you quit. I mean, at that point, you start looking to quit.
I've handled the impossible already, so I think I'm sort of a weird case where he said that too. He said nobody can go 3 hours, but that was just the first time. The other times it's more like 1.5 or 2. But yeah,
Okay.
that's interesting what you said about the quantum. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense to me. And the other thing that for me, it's a very small thing, but for me, it's a very huge thing, is the last bunch of times that I've gone, I become so relaxed that I'm almost like drifting into some other dimension. And for me, that's really hard to achieve, especially somewhere that's not my own home or with someone, someone else standing next to me. Because of my background, it's really hard for me to completely relax, so it's very hard for me to fall asleep at night. And wow, I experienced some incredible relaxation on that table. I'm just, I was really grateful just to have that experience.
Right.
Yeah,
Outstanding. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know, Lawrence, I don't know what's going on, but like Max and I, we're really we're in basically the same location, and we know each other quite well, but we both had sort of I think a similar experience in that we were both able to connect with the practitioner at a very high level, and we were on the machine for I was on it for about 2.5 hours. And yeah, I did red code once. But yeah, and he just had to tune down some of the programs to get me aligned. But I didn't experience any ill effects. I mean, certainly I was detoxing, and that's a lot of it. I did a lot of detoxing, and I was given some suggestions on different vitamins and different things I needed to do to assist myself. And it was given to me in a really nice way, unlike a doctor, which I really liked. It was more of a suggestion. And so, I don't know, for me, it was just really an incredible experience. And I think a lot of like what Max just said is the practitioner was so, it was just like you were welcomed in. It was like, it wasn't just the home, it was that orgone field. It was, there was a level of trust, there was intuition going on, and all of those things I think equated to the positive effects that we received from our sessions. And so I think that's a lot of it. So it's interesting to me, if, Kim wants to go out and buy 20,000 machines and have them distributed worldwide, that's great. But I guess, I'm assuming at least you probably need dozens or hundreds of hours of study to really know what you're dealing with. And you might really need to have, a really good vibration, I think, to really connect into what this really truly is about. Like you were describing the other gentleman earlier who seems to be gifted on some level. So.
Well, our practitioner, David, he said, told me he spent thousands of hours on it. And Lawrence, he studied with that Nelson guy.
Okay. What's his name? David what?
Well, David isn't sure. We don't want to give you his name because we don't have his permission at this point.
All right. Sorry about that.
But no, it's okay. But I'll ask him. And I'll see him this Thursday. I'll ask him, and if it's okay, I can somehow get you his name.
Okay. Yeah. I'm on Facebook if you want to look me up.
All right.
Great. Well, hey, this is a really good. I know there's a lot we could still go over, but we have quite a few people on the call. We have 14 people on the call, and we've had some. If you guys want to take a look at the chat, there's a lot of questions that have been asked, and quite a few that have been answered. And thank you, Aya, very much for and also Bear for getting back on the chat. But what I wanted to do is open it up for people who have some questions or some input. David Adams, go right ahead.
Yeah, a lot of people are medicated, perhaps overly medicated with prescriptions. Does that have any effect on the exam or the session? or the results?
Meditated, is that, as you said,
Yeah,
meditated?
medicated prescriptions, drugs.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You'll come up with, on the main matrix, you come up with all kinds of pharmaceuticals, some drugs that are absolutely essential. And I'll say that, and then I'll say most of them aren't. So, what happens is you'll see the drugs, you'll see the pharmaceuticals, and you'll see the conditions. And if you're somewhat aware, you can link the conditions to the pharmaceuticals, the toxification of the body, the blockages of the body, the meridians that are blocked. I mean, there's a lot of indications that can show you the effect of those pharmaceuticals. So you just go to the detox panel and you come up with all types of information about the toxins that are in your body from all over the complete gamut of toxins, not only just drugs. So you'll get a good indication, you'll get a good idea of what's hampering the system. But like I said, I've had clients that are on 5 different medications, and I would never even come close to want to take them off any of them. And I finally found a cardiologist on Maui here that I could send my one client to, who could take him off a couple of them. He was on too many. He didn't need all of them, and I knew that, but I couldn't tell him that. I couldn't tell him which ones that he needed. I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose. I can't treat. That's one of the ironclad statements that you have to burn into your body when you're talking to people. I treat stress. I work on stress, and I reduce stress. Well, the body stress can be caused by a lot of things, and so if you can find out what's causing that stress, whether it's toxins or whether it's injury or electrical interferences with the body, meridians being blocked. I mean, whatever the stress is being caused by, that's what you're kind of there to find out and try to send countering frequencies to balance that off. One of the beautiful parts of this machine is the nature of its homeopathic depth. There's some places in the machine which I cannot find anywhere at any homeopathy outlet anywhere, like the 10M, the high M frequencies, which there's only a few people in the world that can specialize in those types of frequencies. And you can make the tinctures. I don't, but there's a lot of people who do make tinctures of these once they get the right homeopathic and the right potency. They can give somebody a tincture to walk out the door with if that helps them. But this is basically one of the world's greatest homeopathic machines. Because it's all frequency. And that's what we're dealing with all the time. It's got scalar, and it's got rife, and it's got all the other frequency stuff that you've seen. And anyway, I'm blabbing again. Your initial question was about drugs, and my feeling about drugs is it's a very, very, very deep subject, which has many implications, and you got to walk very carefully with drugs when you're talking to somebody who's on drugs.
Yeah, I would say, David Adams, that being on pharmaceuticals doesn't preclude you from this machine at all. No. The machine will flag it as a toxin, as a problem, because in my opinion, most, if not all, pharmaceuticals have very negative side effects, toxins. They're just not good. So the machine will recognize that, but it doesn't matter that you're taking them for your treatment, if that answers your question.
Well, the question was, does it skew the results or affect the results? But you're saying it really doesn't. It just recognizes.
It just recognizes.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal, David. If I could just add, for instance, what was found in me was that I do a lot of work on cars, and I use a lot of different products, waxes and things. And he had found a a toxin that he identified as some type of a vinyl cleaner or something that was in my system. So, you know, there we go. I'm somehow exposing myself to these things, so I'm going to have to take more precaution. Probably use gloves, which I generally don't do when I'm waxing cars and things like that. So that was one of the things. He even mentioned that, I mean, this is what this machine, I was just amazed. He even mentioned that my teeth had problems early in life due to a drug that my mother was given prior to me being in the womb. I heard some pretty incredible insights as to how this quantum machine can, you know, what it can see. It's really, I think, you know, with the a person who's very knowledgeable with the machine, it's sort of like, you know, for us have been following Kim, it's like what it's the part of the quantum machine that can identify each human being on the planet. It seems to be part of that, you know, and so therefore it has, I guess, like a historical view of each individual on the planet. And somehow that machine can access it when you're connected to it. That's my perception, but maybe Bear has a little insight on that.
It's magic. There's a lot of magic in the machine, and the idea that you have a second brainwave in position, which is what you experience when they were talking about something being wrapped around your neck on an etheric plane. You know, you get second brainwave in positions, and you clear those as you go through the device, and especially when you're working on the level of DNA, which there's a whole panel on DNA. But you know, I often get a lot of things that make me feel like I'm a woman. Now, where's that coming from? Is it coming from a prior life? Is it coming from something which deals with my femininity? I don't know. I mean, I try to understand it, and I just work with it. And then there's all kinds of prior life information where you can go back and see past life linkages to certain situations. You can ask questions of past lives. I mean, I don't, you know, it's hard to explain this stuff, but it has a meaning when you do it. And it's on so many different levels, and there's so much to do with it, and that I'm impressed with the machine. The only thing I want to caution everybody is to say that instant results are not necessarily what this thing is about. Although you do feel good results once in a while, but if you have a situation, a condition that's been chronic for a long time, you know, some autoimmune problem where, you know, it's attacking the myelin sheath of your stomach, and you got holes in your stomach, and you're bleeding toxins into your blood system, and that's creating allergies. You know, that kind of situation is not going to be cleared in a few sessions. That's got to be, you got to work with diet, you got to work with lifestyle, you got to work with the system and the machine to get to something like that. So I caution people about instant results, but I don't hold back at all about the amazing nature of this device. I don't hold that back at all. I think it's an amazing device.
Excellent. Hey, we've got Robert Rackers. I'm going to unmute you, and you've got your hand raised. If you'd like to ask a question or speak, let's see. Here we go. I got you unmuted. Go right ahead.
Yep, I'm ready. First of all, thank you for hosting this. This is awesome.
You're welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
We can hear you.
I have a few questions, and I will be as brief as I can. First question is this related to Rife Machines and that his technology, Dr. Royal Rife, R-I-F-E, in case anybody doesn't know?
It is.
It is. Okay. Awesome.
It has a Rife generator in it, and in fact, there's all kinds of information where you can take 5 or 6 different Rife frequencies, and you got an upper scale and a lower scale, and you lace them into the upper scale and the lower scale, and you run them along with a number of other things in the same panel. So it does work with the Rife frequencies. It's not based on the Rife frequencies, but you can use them within the machine.
Thank you.
Does it have a built-in generator, I assume? Is that what it uses? Is it RF and acoustic signals?
It does have acoustic signals, and there's a whole segment of the program where it works with acoustics, and there's like 4 major pieces of the software. There's the main matrix with a bunch of things that you go off from the main matrix. And then there's something called iridology, and iridology is mostly physical body stuff, but it also includes some dental stuff. And then there's C-scan, which is the cancer scan, which is based on a fellow by the name of Hammer Hurd. And that's a whole incredible piece of work by itself. I've gotten into that a couple times. It's very deep, very interesting. And then there's a body viewer, and the body viewer is where all the acoustical stuff is. And you can run that screen if you have speakers, and you have a separate display. It has also these beautiful pictures that are running in the background along with the acoustics. So, if you go to Nelson's or YouTube page, Desiree's YouTube page, there's all kinds of various YouTubes on various frequency acoustics that are working against different conditions. And the adductor is where that really takes off. It's in the SCIO, but the adductor is another level. The SCIO works on 150 channels simultaneously. Well, I think the adductor works on 1,500 channels. Something like that. It's a whole jump in terms of its capability. It's also more expensive, but the acoustic stuff is all built heavily. It's really advanced in the adductor. It's in the SCIO. It's in the body viewer. To answer your question.
Okay. The other question is more separating the diagnostic aspect and the actual healing aspect of the machine. So I'll just run through several, and you can tell me if it can do anything other than diagnose. Bone, like cartilage, like arthritis, things like that. Can it heal, or does it just say?
Both.
No, it does balance. It works on bones and it works on arthritis. I have a bone spur on my toe, and I go into the bone area, and I go into sports injury, and I treat it for overuse, repetitive injury, all the time actually. And it does help it if it's flamed up, if it's inflamed, if you have arthritis and it's all inflamed. It does kind of reduce the inflammation. So it is working in that area. It's working on the nerves that also it works on the nerves that deal with pain. And so somehow it reduces pain because it's working on those nerves simultaneously. So if you had an injury.
My next one was fibromyalgia.
That's a tough one. That is a tough one. That's autoimmune, and it's nerves, and it's spinal, and it's myelin sheath, and it's could be brainwave. It's emotional, heavily emotionally influenced. And I've had one fibromyalgia client I didn't make a lot. I balanced him a few times, but I couldn't keep him on. I couldn't have him on the machine all the time, so he would slip out. He would slip into his condition pretty frequently. That's a tough one. That very much is a tough one.
Okay. What about blood diseases?
Yeah, there's a blood panel, and
Even
it will tell you what?
Like hemochromatosis, which if you have two mutated genes, you have hemochromatosis. And what I'm curious is if it's capable of doing anything with the what hemochromatosis is the body's inability to do anything with the iron it intakes. So it can't get rid of it, so it stores it in different organs throughout the body. So I could see where it would detect that is going on and which organs are affected, but other than maybe nutrition, is there anything it can do for the actual high iron content in the blood?
I would say yes. There's a blood panel, and it has like 4 or 5 different areas that you work on, and it will pick up different conditions in the blood. I can't remember specifically if it picks up too much iron in particular areas. It's pretty comprehensive. I'll tell you what I'll do is let me give you my email. I don't mind giving my email out to the chat group, and just write me a note, and I will research it for you. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer right now.
Then I did my job in asking the question.
There's my email. Send me an email, and I'll try to get you a specific answer for you.
Sorry, I didn't see it. Oh, it's in the chat?
Yeah, it's in the chat.
Okay, I'll have to switch over to the chat when I'm done here. And my last question is, what about, can it detect, because you said it's capable of doing it remotely, can it detect how electromagnetic pollution is affecting the body? And secondarily, does that interfere with the connection?
No, it doesn't seem to interfere. And yes, there's a whole large panel of different electromagnetic areas, like cell phone radiation and long waves and short waves and EELF and ELF and so on and so on. Different ranges of hertz interferences. And so what you do is you take and use anything that has a number which is maybe the index number is 150 or above, or 200 or 175, and you select those particular areas and you put them in a tray down below that screen, and then you just you just treat, wrong word, but I don't know what else to say, but treat, and you look for a rectification. The idea behind biofeedback is that you're getting a rectification, you're getting a score, you're getting a result. It's telling you whether you're 50% rectified or 75% rectified or over 85% rectified. And if you're over 85, then you can feel confident that you got the problem. But it goes up and down. You'll get 30, and then you'll get 70, and then you'll get 40, and it's a wave. So it doesn't just rectify right away. But you can do that. You can do electromagnetics. You can do neurotransmitters, amino acids. You can do minerals, and you can do flower essences and herbs, and all in this one area. Same thing. You get a list. You pick the index numbers that are high or extraordinarily low. If an index number is real high, that signal's usually acute. If you get an index number that's real low, that's considered to be chronic. So you might look at those upper and lower ranges for indications of what you need to address.
Great. Okay. And is there, I just thought of one last question. Is there anything that can help this generation that have been fed propaganda and wake them up to the reality? I mean, if it can do that, we need a lot more machines.
Oh man, that's a tough one.
That would save the world or go a long way toward helping.
You know, I read a book called Dispossessed, and kind of made me realize that the one thing that in his book where the people who were, there were two worlds, one was capitalistic and the other was more socialistic and cared for the people, but they didn't have much in that world. But they did care for the people. But the capitalist world, you know, it was just deeply in the Maya. And what this person who was visiting that world from the world that didn't have very much, but we were treated people squarely, was that he said, you know, the thing that's going to make a difference is they're going to have to feel the pain. And that we are in revolution all the time. The revolution never stops, which was an interesting comment. But the pain has to be astute enough, has to be big enough to really get people to move and to wake up. So I keep seeing that maybe the current situation is painful enough that we might have a lot more people waking up. Well, in the Northwest, you can bet there's a lot more people waking up right now. I mean, you know, people, they're burning down their homes, they're burning down their forests. They've got to pay attention. So basically, the pain does seem to be the answer. I don't think all the machines in the world will basically change that. They might make people feel a little bit better, which then might make them open up their awareness, which might then make some kind of a difference. But I've worked on global stuff before, meaning we've had, 20 practitioners together all across the globe, and at a specific time, we ran a world healing protocol, all right? And we were working on Mother Earth at different times. Well, I can't really say it woke up, I don't know what it did, but the fact is, it felt good that we were doing something on a global basis. But I think that this waking up thing is a great dilemma. I would love to have a long conversation about that subject.
Well, I guess what I was thinking was if it's frequency based and they connect to the machine, is there any way to just kind of flip on the "you're now a good-hearted person" frequency and leave them for 5 minutes?
Oh yeah, well, you can do that. You can leave them.
Factor in the mind control that's being used on people too, though, Robert. There's a lot of tech deployed to keep people dumbed down and asleep as well. That's a factor.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, we're all learning that pain, believe me. One other question. Where is the chat on here? On Zoom?
Take your cursor and go to the bottom of the screen, and it'll light up participants chat. And you just hit the chat, and it'll open up a sidebar.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you know, Robert,
I'm on a mobile device.
or you're on a
So you're on a mobile device.
Here's the thing, Robert. If you go
Yeah.
on the when the call is finished, if you within probably a few hours, when you go on Lifeforce, I will be dropping both the chat and the video on Lifeforce. So those links will be up. And you guys, I am on Lifeforce as D Love. So if you need to reach out to me, basically any of the information shared, I should be able to follow up and assist. Hey, Robert, thank you very much for all your questions. I know you might have one you want to squeak in, but I've got about another 15 to 20 minutes to hold this call, and I wanted to see if we have a few other people that maybe wanted to ask some questions. I also have Zenja on the line. Zenja's one of the gentlemen here down in Southern Oregon. Speaking of the fires, we have a few of us on the call. We've all been very blessed because we've all made it through. Not all of our friends and family, but so far so good with the Lifeforce team here in Southern Oregon. It's been very scary, but the smoke lifted on the 17th, and we're doing quite a bit better. And we've had a lot of community, a lot of people come together and unite as a result of these fires. So, there is good and bad. So I got to say that, we are seeing the good, and we are seeing, a lot of people really, really raising up and assisting at very high levels, which is the unity that we need. So, hey, with that, I'm going to hand it to Zenda here and see if he wants to
Oh,
go right ahead.
yeah. Thank you, David, for the introduction there. Thanks for hosting this call, and everybody on here. Thank you so much. I did want to say, Robert, if you're on like a phone, brother, you can just tap the screen, just like tap your face or whoever's talking, and there should be icons pop up in the same way that scrolling your mouse down on a computer would. And if you click on,
Okay, I actually
did that work
found
for
it.
you?
It's under the lower right-hand corner under More.
Yeah, that or
The very,
participants
the
should
very
get
top
you.
one that says chat. So I got
So
Larry's
I
email.
hope
So
that
thank you.
helps.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
I
Dan,
wanted
you
to,
shut up now.
no, thank you for everything. I wanted to speak to the nature of, just real quick, like speak to my understanding of the nature of quantum healing, and maybe this is helpful, and I'd also like to get feedback from Lawrence or anybody else who has familiarity with the machine. But I think it's been my experience that the way the healing works, if there's any questions on that, is the human itself, the person themselves is healing themselves. I think what happens a lot of times, I've been around a lot of healing tech, and I think a lot of times people will attribute all of the healing to the device, right? Or to the doctor, not recognizing the fact that the primary healing function is happening within the person themselves by bringing awareness to these energy blockages that create disharmony. In the same way that acupuncture works, right? Like you might be getting headaches all the time because of an energy blockage here. So by inserting that needle, what they're doing is they're bringing a type of awareness, right? The consciousness of the human being goes to that space in the body where the ailment is, where they weren't giving it attention, right? And by not giving it attention, because there's trauma there, there's pain there, by not giving observational energy to that part of the body, it gets worse and worse and people get sick. But what you do is if the human themselves brings awareness to that blockage in their body, then that human can heal themselves. So that's really what you're doing with like acupuncture, a lot of this stuff. You're encouraging the human to heal themselves. And so we've got to be careful saying, oh, the machine, and again, I haven't used this machine specifically, but we got to be careful thinking, well, the machine can't heal this. But what was really happening, my understanding, is that anything the body can naturally heal on its own, this machine can understand that at a quantum level and help that body bring awareness to itself and also harmonize those energies. And that can be a very subtle, very quick thing sometimes. Sometimes you can just bring a little bit of awareness. You can bring bring an energy source. You can layer that over the matrix of a human being's body and get really quick results. But like some things have established over years and years and years, and they're going to take diet changes. It's going to take, it's going to take lifestyle changes. It might take meditation. It might changing your sleeping habits. And the machine can't fix that. What it really is a human being bringing awareness to themselves. And so something I found that really works, if you don't have one of these machines, for instance, and Lawrence, I'd love for you to speak to this, something I've used for years is a type of healing where, let's say, for instance, if I've got an injury, right? Say I have an injury in the shoulder, like you get stabbed or who knows what happens, right? And so there's injury there, you want that to heal. One of the things I've been doing for years is I simply touch the other side of the body where it is not damaged, and I feel that, right? I sense what that feels like deeply. And then I go touch the injured section, and I feel it. And then I go back again, and I feel, I don't think, I just feel the healthy version of that. I feel that energy. I bring awareness to that space on my body that's healthy on this side, and then I bring it over this side, and I feel that. I touch, and I touch, and I touch, and I simply bring awareness to that, and it speeds up my healing very quickly. If you don't have a machine, this is something that might help folks, right? So my understanding, bringing this around to understand the way the quantum nature of it works, is the quantum field isn't subject to all the electromagnetic, like the three-dimensional frequencies necessarily. It's in an observational, non-local space, like Lawrence spoke to. So it can see these things, but it isn't trumping these things. It's bringing awareness to these things so that the practitioner and the person themselves, the patient, now has a communication, a feedback loop between themselves, source, the field around them, and themselves again. And it reharmonizes that energetic flow, therefore allowing the body to heal itself. And sometimes that happens quicker than others, more quickly than others, depending on the ailment. Lawrence.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Is that helpful, or does that seem to kind of corroborate?
You don't need all I can say is you don't need a machine. You are a quantum healer. You are doing it already. You're just doing it with your mind and your awareness. And there are advanced healers around who will say that they don't need a machine. And you are what I would consider an advanced healer. That is something which, that awareness, I've seen in a number of places. Even Kim, what's interesting about Kim one time, I offered her a session, and she said, I don't need a session. And I went, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'll just heal myself. So it's the same idea. And I went, okay, well, you don't need a machine. You obviously have enough awareness and enough energy directed in the right place at the right time. And, you know, there's distant healers that are doing the same thing. They're focusing on somebody and they're pouring energy into that person, and the person feels better. It's the same quantum field.
I think that I need work though sometimes too, because, you know, it's just like David said, there's like those maybe little prisons inside yourself that you're not looking at. So even someone who, like, I'm really interested in these things, but I do get subject to, ask my friends, ask Max and David here, they'll tell you, man, I have my moments. And so there's definitely times I think any of us, you know, can have a little tune-up. You can buy the best car in the world and you're going to need to put oil in that thing and whatnot. So,
oh, every day. Every day. I mean, I'm pounding on Facebook, putting out information for seven months on the fraud nature of the whole COVID thing. And I've lost friends, I've lost family members, and every day I'm entering into the field, which is not a very constructive field when you think of it. So how much cleansing do I need? Well, sometimes I just turn everything off. You know, I have made those spots inside of me, like you're saying, that need to be, I need to let go. And with a machine or without a machine, we've got to continuously be very aware of the energy that we have been spending time in, and take and get away from that. I mean, I think the best healing modality in the world is, as you all know, is nature. And nature will heal most anybody, you know, whether take a walk or, you know, hug a tree or go in the ocean, doesn't matter. That is my go-to healing modality.
Well, if I may I don't usually share this with most people, but in my childhood, you know, I was brutalized regularly for about the first 18 years. And I had the ability to heal myself. So if my bones were broken within a short time, they would self-repair. I don't know how I did it, but I did. So I totally agree with Senja. We heal ourselves, you know, and that's probably an organic, natural ability that we all have. But because we come into this world and are conditioned to believe that, you know, we have to look for everything outside of ourselves, you know, we have to go to the doctor if we're sick, or, you know, whatever. So we're mistaught and we're trained out of that ability. But I think we naturally have that ability. I mean, you can look at animals out in nature, you know, they heal themselves. You know, it takes some time, they have to sleep, they have to rest, but they do come back from it. And the other thing that occurred to me, Zenja, when you were talking, is that thing about the placebo effect. You know, in all these studies, they give people the drug and they give the other group the placebo. And what they always find is that the people that take the placebo get better. Why? Because it's a belief. It's, if you think that you're going to be healed, then you heal yourself, right? So I think that factors deeply in. So with this machine, it's probably possible that if someone was super, super skeptical, and didn't believe it could help, that it might not, right? So I think that factors in as well.
So, there was a doctor at Mayo Clinic, a good friend of mine. He's a cardiologist. And years ago, I brought my machine, and we were skiing somewhere, and I said, after we finished, I said, "Hey, John, come over. I want to show you this, John. I want to show you this device, this machine." And I went through the main matrix after testing him, and he looked at it, and he went, "Oh, that's a nice placebo device. That's a nice placebo machine." That's all he would say, is a placebo machine. Well, that's what they're trained to do. They're not going to believe in this. But in fact, if you tell somebody that you're working on them and you tell them that they're, in this area and that area, it will enhance just their attitude. You're right. It's a placebo machine. So the placebo is, a lot of vaccinations, vaccinations won't beat the placebo. That's why they don't test versus a placebo. It's like, 60%, you've got to have a positive rating beyond 60% to beat the placebo, but they don't beat the placebo. So it's a very important part of actually medicine.
Awesome.
So
Thank you, Bear.
I was going
Hey,
to step in response to what
Aya,
Linda said. I won't take very long.
Sure, go ahead.
This is Aya. So I've done a lot of research on this equipment and the science behind it, and have some familiarity. Whether it is big pharma, light work like I do, or SKIO device, it's always the human body that's healing the human body. The premise of the quantum biofeedback device is, like, when you taste something, it's actually due to quantum interactions that the current model still likes to think of as just chemical, but in reality, they're quantum interactions. And the device has a database of all these different, like, items that exist in our world. It has a map of those items as electrical signals in multiple dimensions. By testing how your body responds to those signals, you either have some variation of weak or strong response, like Lawrence mentioned, which will indicate level of a dis-ease state. By exposing your body to signals that can stimulate its healing response, which is exactly how homeopathics works, which is what I make up is exactly what's going on. It's just the source of energy is through a human being when I do light work, right? We are sending information that the body reacts to or responds to by stimulating its own healing ability. I actually think at light work, once people recognize how much of everything that's going on in themselves on the planet is about two things: truth telling and high vibration. And in research I've done looking at history, whoever has those two the highest ends up winning.
I
So
love
truth
that.
telling,
Thank you for that, man.
Right
Keep
on,
going,
brother.
but that just made my heart sing. The high vibration, the truth, the love, that energy itself has a quantum effect and that feedback loop. It's so important. Thank you. Keep going.
no, that's it, because I think actually David's trying to wind down, but when you were asking, I just wanted people to know, it's like, yeah, it's always the human body that heals, and the SKIO's doing it in a very specific way based on quantum realities that are part of the real science, but don't suit the controller's desire to have people know about, because you're less controllable if you understand what's really going on, right? So,
Yes.
and that's why they give so much bad food, right? Because your vibration's lower. So they don't teach truth. They lower your vibration with food and lifestyle creation, and then you become the sheeple that they can control. The solution: do your best to find out real truth, do exercises and eat in ways to raise your vibration.
Excellent. Well, hey guys, we've got about a good 10 minutes or so, and I know there's a few people on the call who may have questions. I got another individual down here in Southern Oregon, Debbie Mama Z. Wanted to see if she has any questions or anything like that, and if anybody else is out there who wants to raise their hands. Mama Z, love to hear from you.
Well, I am just so fascinated by this, and I just have a daughter and two daughter-in-laws who are massage therapists, and they're such incredibly, well, Zinja knows this, that they're just these earthy, and I just think this would be a wonderful field for them, because I think that all of you who have gone, and like I told you, David, I thought you lightened up a whole bunch. There was just something that something was lifted off your shoulders, but that there was something different about when you did that. And everyone comments on the person that you've gone to, and I also hear this in Lawrence's voice, that there is this healing feeling, vibe that they have, that they really care. And so as I think about my daughter-in-laws, as I hear, and I know Zinjas and you, David, you are just intuitive and empathic and all of those things. And that's what it takes, I think, to calm the people down, which raises their vibe, so helps them heal themselves. So my daughter-in-laws are wonderful that way too. And I just see them enjoying, how what do they say about doing something that you love? I feel that this being able to help humanity on this tactile, vibrational frequency, just self-awareness, self-healing, it's like it's self-healing facilitation. And I am motivated to go, and Zinja's motivated to go. It's like, yes, we can, but we don't always know what's wrong. I mean, I know when I stubbed my toe, but I don't know what early childhood trauma or early, I always tease my sons about me giving them early childhood trauma, but I might have had some too. And that's just because they got the wooden spoon and most other people didn't get it. So it worked out for the best, I know for a fact. And I did not get spanked, and that's probably why I was such a brat. But don't tell anybody.
Well, how much does it cost to do that? Like on that question, to make it specific, what do you think? Like when we think about like Lindsay, for instance, setting this up, like I agree. I think she's so intuitive. She'd be wonderful. It makes you wonder the specifics, and I'd probably go to a website. But what does it cost for, say, a massage therapist to get the apparatus, get the training, get the program? Like, what does that look like in terms of time and money investment typically? Not to hijack your question, Mom, but on that note specifically, how could we connect them in that way? What does that look like for them to set up?
Well, anyway, Zenja, I could answer a little bit about that. I was told the QF costs like $22,000, I think, and there were 3 different machines. The Skio is more the original machine; it's a little less. Don, who's on the call here, he's been contacting them directly to get some pricing and stuff. And so, you know what? We've got a few more minutes. I'd really like to try to end the call here in about 10 minutes, but Don from California, would you like to speak and give us some input? How you doing, Don?
Hey, good. How you guys doing? Thanks for holding a great meeting, Dave, and for the participants for attending and getting some input, and also for the practitioner for offering some, solid responses to some really good questions. One of which I found extremely interesting regarding fibromyalgia and peripheral neuropathy and autoimmune disorder and dis-ease, as we all recognize these things to be, and what path to pursue on that. But my line of questioning kind of refers to the scientific aspect, or the modality of frequencies and healing in that sense, and the machine having the ability to tune to impedances, I guess, using, or I'm assuming using Ohm's laws of Ohm's calculations to recognize that there is an obstacle to a loop, a feedback loop. And if so, in balancing that out, or correcting, or sending cosine sine wave type negating frequencies to remove that impedance, I would be a little concerned with that flattening of what we would consider a cellular or genetic or DNA material that may be pronounced for some reason unknown to us, that would maybe today, tomorrow, or sometime in the future be a beneficial mutation, or I guess injury or trauma that would allow growth as opposed to a hindrance. Anybody following my line of questioning there, as far as stabilizing humanity's life force energy into, like, say, 432 hertz frequencies? And how does this play out in, like, the Solfeggio type scale of frequencies? Should we not be tampering with any of these things, or should we just kind of listen to our own internal consciousness on these types of sound and modalities, resonance modalities? And that's it. That's all I have. It's good to see you guys again, and thanks again, David, for putting this up.
Thanks, Don.
Anybody want to tackle?
Don, I think some of your understanding of how this specific device works is actually off, and you need to do the research, because he literally is using multiple dimensions of electromagnetics to map items, which he uses to test. So he's not doing anything to shift what's going on in the frequency of the person, except to expose them to, like, different amplitude frequencies, and I forget the third one because it's a trivector, that are exactly those that are given off by real physical things that he literally measured and put in the database. So think of it as, like, if you, like homeopathics, the people trained in the religion of science will say, oh, it's not real, because at that level there's nothing left. But what they're forgetting is water is one of the highest memory substances we know. And if you, doesn't matter if anything's left, because there's a frequency signature that's in the water that ends up in the tablet, and it's always ultimately the frequency signature. That's what I was trying to say before. That's what affects the body to make change or to digest food. All reality that we know, we're so used to thinking of things as physical and solid, when in reality it's mostly empty space, and electrons never touch each other because they repel. So it is the quantic and not the thermodynamic relationship that is the real reality. And we're just used to old habits based on, beliefs that we started having at this point, what, between 200 and 300 years ago? And the science for now, 100 years, has known things are really different, but they haven't made a point of really teaching us that, or even teaching the people who really learn it, like, that it's really significant, because they don't want us to know in general. But I mean, my mind gets blown, because, like, if you really study the physics, they teach it in such a way that most people buy into the religion of science, and they just go like, oh, the fact that entanglement's real has nothing to do with what we're doing at the macro level that we live at. But, like, if that man loves his wife, or that woman loves her man, and they've ever, like, thought about each other and, like, known they should call, or the person called, like, in seconds, it's because they're entangled and we're all connected, right? So for those who believe in real science and real observation, instead of excluding things because culture says, like, oh, well, that can't be real, who says it can't be real? I'm experiencing it. Like, what am I going to believe? My experience or your theory?
Awesome. Thank you, Aya.
So my point is there's nothing in the skio that is going to flatten anybody. And it's basically a more subtle way of exposing them to energies than pharmaceutical medicine or remarkably, even homeopathics. Ultimately, all those exposures are actually operating on a quantic level. So there's no doubt about the fact that with pharmaceuticals, it's major and intense. And what healers know is the body actually often responds to the subtle more powerfully as long as it's supported in its response, which is why a lot of really doing work, as Lawrence was saying, with this kind of device is about teaching people about lifestyle habits and making those changes. Because, like, I've seen God honest, Jesus level miracles with energy work. Sometimes they stick, sometimes they don't. If somebody doesn't have a high enough vibration and they got a whole lot of bad habits, it's more amazing that a facilitator was able to help them make the shift at all. Which gets me back to truth and high vibration.
Nice.
So if Don, if you're really interested, there's links that I placed which will lead you to plenty of material from Desiree, formerly Robert Nelson, talking about what he did. I think one of the videos may even talk specifically that I linked to. It's an early one. I don't remember it because I've watched so much recently. When I want to learn about something, I really dive in. I just decided, like, this is something I really wanted to learn about. I guess in part because I decided, in the interest of some friends who have an actual healing center, I should put in an order for device for them, and if nobody else will run it, I'll run it. But, like, I got too many things going in the fire. I want to make that commitment myself, but I wanted to really learn about it, so I've taken the time. With that, I yield. I'm also going to depart saying thank you very much for creating this for us, David, and thank you all for showing up, and I will see you on some Lifeforce event. Peace.
Sounds
Thanks.
good, Aya. Hey,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank
Well, hey,
you.
you guys.
On me, you.
I just wanted to say thank you very much, all of you, for showing up. It's been very great, informational. I have recorded it, and so I will post that on the Lifeforce app. I did want to say too, the Lifeforce app seems to be in line with the quantum and with all the chaos going on multiple social media and other platforms. I personally believe that the Lifeforce app is the most secure place to to stay in touch. So I look forward to seeing you guys on the app, and stay tuned because we hope to do some more of these calls. Thank you, Judith, for your request, and we'll see what we can do. I'm going to do what I can. I'm, like I said, I'm very busy doing a lot of things, but we will make some time and we will start pumping some calls out. People need to know. Much love to you all, and thank you very much for showing up. Thank you so much, Bear, Zenja, David Adams, Dawn, Lisa,
Thank you,
Rob.
Lawrence. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Have a great night, guys.
Are we meeting tomorrow?
Yes. Let me
Okay.
call you after this.
Okay.